A little over a century ago, a shadowy figure lurked in the dark alleys of London, preying on innocent victims. His identity haunts us to this day. I'm Heather Graham. Join me as we uncover the view from hell.
You won't be satisfied by this.
The story of Jack the Ripper is one of the most famous unsolved murder mysteries of all time. Trying to uncover his identity has fascinated us for over 100 years. Directed by the Hughes brothers and starring Johnny Depp, Ian Holm, Robbie Coltrane, and myself, From Hell brings a very human face to an inhumane series of events.
I was always attracted to the story of Jack the Ripper. I was always fascinated with the case.
For people who aren't aware of the Jack the Ripper case, they never did catch the murderer. And this movie's about 5 prostitutes in that area who were witness to a marriage of their friend to a mysterious guy. And for some reason, their friend ends up missing, and they start getting picked off one by one.
It's a very kind of complicated and interesting theory about who he was, and you meet a lot of characters along the way, and you wonder who it is.
Sometime this evening, a bank teller was murdered in George Yard.
That doesn't sound much out of the ordinary.
It was the way she was done, Inspector. It was the way that she was done that cries out for a man of your talents.
Inspector Aberline, based on a real guy, was assigned to Whitechapel to investigate the case and try and crack it, find out who the Ripper is.
I believe this was done by someone with at least a working knowledge of dissection.
Aberline has these visions, and he has this kind of special gift where he has flashes of what is going to happen in his dreams.
I saw her face.
You know, they used to burn men like you alive.
Aberline, during his investigation, meets, in fact, all the prostitutes and Mary Kelly.
You're Mary Kelly, is that right?
That's right.
I want you and your friends off the streets until I can sort this thing out.
Mary Kelly. I'm a prostitute, and I live in London in this slum called Whitechapel. Myself and all my friends are on the brink of starvation. We're just trying to get through the day, and different friends are being killed by Jack the Ripper. And I help Johnny Depp in his investigation.
He becomes especially close with Mary Kelly and finds out through his investigation that she is next in line to be visited by the Ripper, and it becomes more than just the investigation. It becomes emotional for him. He falls in love.
You have visions about me?
Most definitely. At least one of her organs was removed. Is it possible, sir, that the killer is an educated man?
I must admit, if I were you, I'd look for someone with a thorough knowledge of human anatomy.
Could have been anyone. These girls might have very well known the guy. And at the same time, it could have been some major conspiracy. It's impossible to know.
He's not merely killing them. He's punishing them.
God, he's out of his mind.
The great thing about this movie is it's just this great mystery, and it's really smart, and you don't really know, who it is until the very end.
Jack the Ripper's not finished.
Who was Jack the Ripper? A butcher, a doctor, a social miscast? There's so many theories, it's hard to separate them from the actual police work.
Well, Jack the Ripper is a man, they think, that murdered 5 women. They haven't found him, and they never will find him. So it's still a mystery, and that's why people are still fascinated by Jack the Ripper, because they can't find the man.
It's like the Titanic. It's one of those great mysteries that nobody's ever solved.
Well, the Scotland Yard files on the Whitechapel murders cover 11 murders beginning in April 1888 and ending in February 1891. Now, all these murders weren't committed by the same hand. What we're looking at with Jack the Ripper are the canonical 5 murders committed by the Ripper were between the end of August 1888 and the 9th of November.
He was, on record, the first serial killer of his kind.
One day, men will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century.
You're not going to see the 20th century.
Jack the Ripper, the name came from one of the letters. At the time of the murders, when it started getting all that press, all these letters started coming in. So Jack the Ripper, the name, first appeared in one of the letters, which most of the Ripperologists believe are all fake.
They're rubbish, you know that.
Scotland Yard has something like 230 letters supposedly from Jack the Ripper, of which, ironically enough, that's where we get our title. The only one that is believed to be legitimate, which is in the British Museum today. It was a letter that came with half of a human kidney, and they did believe it was from Jack, and it had the return address, which is very crucial to our film.
From hell. Well, at least they got the address right.
I believe this was done by an educated man, such as a doctor.
An educated man? That's preposterous. Probably a tradesman or a butcher.
Possibilities as theories as to who Jack the Ripper was go in all directions. There's a very famous letter called the Detective Littlechild letter, where he says they caught Jack the Ripper, and because he was a doctor, they gave him bail, thinking he would be too decent to skip bail, but he was an American doctor. He, sure enough, skipped bail, went to Paris, and ended up back in America, where reputedly he continued murdering in America. And the doctor's name in that case was Dr. Tumblety.
Well, one thing's for certain. An Englishman didn't do it.
My own personal theory is that on the night of the double murder, we have the best clue ever, and we know that he's going into the neighborhood where they're trying to find him. He must therefore have been someone who fitted into this neighborhood, someone who didn't stand out from the crowd. Aaron Kosminski, a poor Polish Jew living in the heart of the area, who was apprehended effectively in December 1888, was placed into Stepney Workhouse Infirmary, and from there he went to an asylum.
There's several theories on who Jack the Ripper is, and the one that's most popular is the one we chose to do, which is the world conspiracy, they call it.
There's too many odd facts to reconcile it not being somebody of influence. For 2 weeks, the London police in that area were on what's called high alert. The day after what would become the final murder, the London police are taken off high alert. But did someone know there weren't going to be any more murders? There's all kinds of facts that lead to the conclusion that there is somebody of influence.
And you have other theories that deal in like an American doctor, or you have a school teacher, and there's, I suppose there'd be like 30 or 40 of them basically, you know, but you can't make all the theories in one movie.
Well, that proves it.
Whoever created the name Jack the Ripper was a marketing genius, because you can say that name to anyone, anywhere in the world today, and it will immediately conjure up vivid images of foggy, gaslit streets and an untold horror stalking his unsuspecting prey through the back streets and alleyways of the East End of London.
Whether commenting on civil unrest and menace to society, or highlighting social issues in the heist movie Dead Presidents, or theorizing about Jack the Ripper, the Hughes brothers do everything with a sense of conscience and style all their own.
At a young age, I remember hearing the name Jack the Ripper and never knowing who he was. I just remember that name and Ripper, like, what kind of name is that, you know?
What initially caught our interest about the Jack the Ripper legend was when we were little, we saw this In Search of episode with Leonard Nimoy where they chronicle a lot of things, but this episode was about Jack the Ripper, and it like scared us. And I just remember it stuck in our head, the fog and all that, the cape and the knife and the women. And like everyone, we always had like a fascination with it, kind of like the JFK situation where it was never solved.
He didn't finish. He won't be satisfied by this.
One of the interviewers asked the Hughes brothers, they said, you know, well, why are you guys from the street doing this period English piece? You guys are American, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, did Steven Spielberg need to hang out with aliens in order to make E.T.? You know, he's like, we're doing a film about street violence, and that's what our other films have been about.
This film fits into the same style of film we like to make because it deals with violence and you deal with the streets. It's a whole set of different rules. But when you're talking about like 20th century ghetto and then, you know, 19th century ghetto, they're both pretty similar in a way, just without the same tools. You know, there's knives instead of guns.
The background, and action.
There's more than one then.
There was always that thing inside my head going, well, how does this work, you know? One guy come over and say, you know, do this, you know, the other guy comes over and, you know, contradicts him completely. Will it be like that? But no, in fact, their process, it's really terrific, and they've got it down beautifully.
Me and my brother both work in separate areas while we're on the set. He deals with the actors in rehearsal and on the set. And I deal with the camera and the technical side and setting up shots and color palettes, but then we both blur the lines and You might have ideas on shots, I might have ideas on performance and stuff like that.
They're so fun, and they're so well prepared, and everything's so well thought out that when they come to work, they're just incredibly relaxed and love to hang out and play music all the time.
If you can come to the set and be, clown around, be relaxed, play music, socialize with everybody, I think everybody gets relaxed, and I think the best comes out of that.
I think they're bringing to the movie like a real rawness, instead of this very overly precious period feeling. I think they are bringing like a raw, emotional, passionate, exciting take.
Cut!
The key to any investigation is attention to detail. And From Hell, no detail was too small for the Hughes brothers, who used actual case evidence to recreate Ripper's settings and murders.
What was really impressive about it is that the Hughes brothers, Alan and Albert, were really, really, really sticklers for detail and to the truth, the exact position of the body, the exact position of this window here, where the window was broken in Miller's Court. I mean, down to the cobblestones. Those guys were here like, oh no, that's wrong, look at the picture.
When we sat with Martin Childs, the production designer, and talked about building the Whitechapel sets, we looked at historical photos, looked at the past movies too, and different movies in this time period, and also went on the tour of the real Ripper murder sites.
The big undertaking for this was that we had to reproduce Whitechapel, we had to produce the East End of London. And had we shot this in the UK, if you go there now, a lot of buildings still exist, but you can't turn around and shoot the reverse of them. So what we did here was create something where you could shoot 360 degrees of Victorian London.
The actual victims actually walked up and down this street, and we created the church and the pub, and they still exist to this day in London. It's the only two pieces that really stayed intact.
Our set was so big that it's like the sets of the 30s and the 40s of big epic movies.
You can't build that kind of set anymore because it's literally a whole backlot into of itself, just for one film.
He's taken at least one of her organs. This ain't killing for profit. This is ritual.
We did a lot of research actually for this film. So we had documentaries, talked to researchers and ripperologists, what they call them, guys that are really into the whole Ripper mythology.
A lot of work has been done, a lot of research by the directors and the art design people into the actual scenes of the murders. They've looked at the victim photographs to get the injuries exactly right. I think this is going to make for a very interesting movie.
All of the murder sites are well documented, and we've reproduced those to the nth degree, really.
Some of the murders, you can actually obtain photos and see a lot of what was around the bodies, and how they were found. Some of them, they have less material on, but we had to connect the dots or go find police records and read the descriptions, and paint in everything there, and use these ripperologists actually also to help us. The body positions are pretty accurate, and then the cuts on all the victims are exactly the same as the victims from 100 years ago.
The murders were so horrific because they've recreated them for the film, and we've walked on the set, Johnny and I, and gone, oh my God, not being able to look at them.
Fetch the ambulance.
It was fun looking at them for the first time, like when they built the prosthetic bodies, because nobody's had a chance to see the damage he did to these victims. And then you see the progression of how badly mutilated they get by the end and how much more crazy he gets along the way.
Hell, Netley. We are in hell.
From Hell takes a look in one of crime's darkest minds. Whatever your theory, one thing's for sure. It's a hell of a story.
I shall tell you where we are. We are in the most extreme and utter region of the human mind. A radiant abyss where men meet themselves. Hell.
This movie is called From Hell, of course, and it's based upon the graphic novel by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. Inspired, I would say, more so because the graphic novel unto itself, there's really no way to do justice to it. And there are two different mediums. You have a 2-hour movie as opposed to whatever, a 500-page, multi-layered very complex graphic novel. So we've taken basically the smell of the novel, the theory, and the title, and we've kind of spun our own little web and done things that make it its own entity, basically. And which makes it interesting to us as filmmakers is not to copy something, word for word, but to make it its own, because it is an entirely different medium.
The original graphic novel is very much Jack the Ripper, Portrait of a Serial Killer. By page 30, you know this guy is Jack. He's been sent to do a mission, and the graphic novel is about his journey into madness. I don't think Abilene shows up in the graphic novel to probably page 150. So the graphic novel, as I said before, is more of a meditation on evil, a meditation on how it comes about, and a meditation on madness. You watch as Jack slowly gets into this. The first one, he doesn't really, it's work, he has to do it. The second one, well, that's, by the time he finds out that he's not done with the fourth one, there's still one more to go, he's completely gone. He's completely, bonkers, he's completely gone mad. And, if you study the case, like Alan did, it's very clear. By the time you get to the fifth one, it was almost like someone was out to get the fifth one, because instead of just slitting her throat or something, he disassembled the person. If you're going to go make a studio film, there's just no way you're going to convince a studio that Jack is the main character. It would be very fascinating, it would be very interesting to watch Jack, but that's not a popular commercial film, and there was never, ever a discussion. I mean, as I got to become friendly with Alan Moore and hang out with him and talk to him, it's like, you understand that this is immediately going into Abeline's story. It's really going to be about the guy who we as an audience are going to, Johnny Depp in the film, we're going to follow. And although Jack should be prominent, Jack should be a major character, it's not Jack's story, it's Abeline's story. And that's the major departure.
Came across a graphic novel after we had read the script, and somebody had gave us the comic books. And then we started reading the comic books and figuring out what to put back into the script, because the original script we had gotten from Disney had a really Hollywood type ending. There was nothing from the comic book in it, it was just the basis. And what most people don't know is that the comic book was based after a book called Jack the Ripper, The Final Solution, written by Stephen Knight in 1976, I think. And that's, that's the story right there. And then the comic book deviated from that and created its own story, but a lot of it was based after that. And then we did the same thing with the movie. So what I did with the movie, or both me and my brother did, was go back to the original book, read that book, then read other source material, and then in conjunction with the comic book, come up with, like a composite of all of them, and also all the movies that had been put out before, like all the best aspects of those movies we used too, and try to make a definitive Jack the Ripper movie, even though nobody knows who did it. Every one of the actors, in fact, it got to a point where it was so ridiculous. Every one of the actors and production people got the graphic novel. At the time, they were in 10 different individual parts. So every time, I ended up not having copies because I was giving them, even actors with me with it didn't eventually be in the movie. We were just giving them out to everyone. And then they compiled and put them in one book. And so every department had the novel, and everybody knew when we had marked all the, as far as production design or looks on people's faces or whatever that we wanted to extract from the graphic novel. So I'd say everyone involved, from even some of the smallest parts, got a graphic novel. I think that we definitely use a comic book for, production designer, our cinematographer, the actors. And when you're dealing with different departments like that, they look at it for different reasons. Like production design will say, oh, look at the way this set looked in this comic book. Or the camera, you say, oh, look how dark the clouds are right here. Or the way this coach looks in this shot. And for the actors, it was just great character study, because it's so rich and detailed. There's no way that you can spend 2 hours on that small character that we have in the movie, but they can read the comic book and find all this information out and know how to go about it if they want to use that, basically. So everybody did eventually end up reading the comic book. The one thing we took from the comic books that really helped us out was more the images, the visuals. And we took certain frames and stuff like that that inspired certain scenes. There was certain dialogue we took too that stuck really, true to the way it was in the comic book.
There was a confrontation scene at the end with the Masons that was the exact dialogue from the comic book. And before that, it was the same scene, but the dialogue wasn't exactly the same, but we didn't like the dialogue, so we changed it to the comic book. And sometimes when you take dialogue from books or comic books, it doesn't translate on screen, but this one did. And then I think the atmosphere and the mood of the comic book, how dirty and you can smell the stuff, you know, you can smell the streets and everything like that. You can see how dirty the characters were. It's something that we drew from. Also, it's good to draw from the comic book because there's not a lot of pictures around from back then that tell you how those people lived. And the comic book really, the guy did such great research, you can get a lot of information from those. One thing we picked up visually from the book was a squalor in the streets, you know, stuff like that. Also the horse and carriage shots going through driving by popular landmarks, which we use in the movie too. There's like the Cleopatra's Needle that was in the comic book. We use that. There's a Christ Church that's in the neighborhood. We use a lot of shots from the comic book for that. The way the girls washed in the cattle trough, you know, they use it as their bath. We use that in the movie. There's a few other scenes, like sex scenes from the comic book that weren't so graphic in the movie, but they're very graphic in the comic book. And there's this one comic book that's totally dedicated to the last murder. And every page is how he, you know, chopped this girl's body up into little pieces and stuff like that. So we used a lot of stuff from that, but we didn't use the overt and direct stuff, but more the overall vibe, you know, and there's some shots in there that don't have to do with like a lot of bloodletting, so we use that too. This is two of the panels I was discussing as far as like one of the things we worked off of that shows, it's for a graphic novel, it's like a time-lapse shot, and we used in the first murder of Polly Nichols, time-lapse motion control shot of like one after the Ripper. It shows the whole shot starts with the Ripper killing her, and then he walks off and disappears, and the moon comes up, and then a cop comes, or a constable for that matter, and then you start to see other constables gather around, and then it becomes this big frenzy of people, and eventually it becomes, let's see, where you can barely see here, but where like onlookers are there, and then Johnny steps in the scene, who plays Inspector Abberline, and then kneels down, and then the shot becomes, we start cutting away basically. So this is one of the many things we took, and as well as I can show you right here, this shot here of Polly and the coach, where she's looking out the window and looking at the Cleopatra's Needle. We took this frame also. So it was little things like that, you know. I also got the idea for that shot from John Carpenter's Halloween, where there's a girl in the car and there was fog in the window and something about the window and her kicking the window. So we had her put her breath up against the window, and then we put some mist eventually throughout the scene. It was kind of cool. There was a scene in the comic book, or some panels in the comic book, of the coachman pleasuring himself, I should say. And we shot this, and I shot it almost frame for frame from the comic book. And then we shot his murder too, which he was pleasuring himself before he got murdered. And now both those scenes were cut from the movie because it just didn't work in the context of the movie. But I loved them from the comic book. I go, this is a perfect example of something I liked that worked in the comic book that just didn't translate to film. The scene unto itself translated, but in the context of the movie, it just didn't work. But it was pretty much frame for frame. I think if you're making a film based on a novel or something like that, there is a certain amount of responsibility to stay true to the essence of the novel or the comic or whatever it may be. But at a certain point, as we all know, the movie's taking a life of their own, and when you start involving artisans and actors and whatever, just filmmakers in general, you don't want to stay true to it in a lot of ways because you want to create this whole new environment. The experience is a whole nother experience, and if you can put the novel aside and just experience the movie as is, you'll have a greater journey basically. So that's my theory. We're in the Czech Republic, Prague, or Praha. It has many names. Former Czechoslovakia, 9-10 years out of communist rule. So it's a bit difficult to work here. But what this country does allow you, outside of being really, really cheap to shoot here, is
like incredible locations, you know, gorgeous locations, interiors, and immaculate sets that sets, I mean rooms that aren't sets that you couldn't even build, you know, and a lot of these castles we filmed in, and libraries and museums have been around since 1100, you know, and they have books in them that are 1,000 years old, and the floors and the wood and the marble and stuff like that. You couldn't recreate this stuff, so I had to say that was our main reasons for coming out here.
We originally came to Prague because we thought we could actually use some of the real streets and shoot exteriors here in the streets of Prague, but it became clear early on that it was going to be very complicated with the cars and the traffic and the modernization. And so Martin has built in a little town about 20 miles from Prague called Orge, an amazing set of the whole Whitechapel area. We were able to build a set the size of which I don't think we could have done in Los Angeles or in London.
What I thought I was doing when I came to Prague 8 months ago was I thought I was coming here to find locations to shoot a film about Victorian London in and on, and spent the first few days being taken around towns on the outskirts of Prague and streets in Prague itself, and discovering that we would have had to have spent a hell of a lot of money to make it look anything like Victorian London. With great trepidation, I asked the question, should we build the whole of the East End of London, maybe on a backlot at Barrandov Studios, or find a field in a village somewhere? And the idea was taken up.
So Martin Childs got together with us and started designing, you know, off the research we had done, the set that tied all the murder locations together. And being that we're here in Prague, it was a lot cheaper to build it here, so we can build a bigger set than we would in the UK or in America. So, and he just was, he's just really great production designer. He really got the details right, down to the moss and the dirt and the stuff in the streets.
The big undertaking for this was that we had to reproduce Whitechapel. We had to produce the East End of London. Because if you go there now, I mean, had we shot this in the UK, if you go there now, a lot of buildings still exist, but you can't turn around and shoot the reverse of them. So what we did here was create something where you could shoot 360 degrees of Victorian London. I guess it took about 3 or 4 weeks to do all of these streets. Yeah, I mean, and it took something like 12 weeks to build the entire set, from the day when it was just a flat field, and I came along here and saw the plan, the layout that I'd designed as a kind of three-dimensional join the dots thing. The entire layout was marked out in sort of 40-foot tree trunks, which they then nailed the facades to. What became apparent was that we needed to have this huge street down the middle of it all, which is Commercial Street, and the only way we could make a sort of 150-meter long, about a 500-foot long chunk of Commercial Street was to sort of give it a dog leg and a banana, so that you couldn't see off the end of it when you were at one end, and similarly when you were at the other end you couldn't see off the other end of it, and then putting Christchurch in the middle of it all. All of the exterior stuff that we've shot here, we've had the special effects department have filled it with rain and mist, and with the poor interiors, I wanted to get the feeling that all of these buildings were badly maintained. So we've got sort of the weather getting onto the interiors too. So all of the walls are damp, and you just don't want to be inside these rooms where you know people are sleeping 6 to a bed, or sometimes 6 to a bench. That's the kind of thing I wanted to get across.
Cut it. Cut. Stop. A little shaky.
There is a scene in which Abberline discovers that one of our unfortunates, Anne Crook, has been taken to Marylebone Workhouse, which is another piece of Victorian Gothic architecture, and we actually found a location for that. It was a dream location. It was the sort of thing that much better than I could have designed myself, And we found it in the city of Prague, and it's a still working maternity hospital, but it's sufficiently scary and gothic and brown and dark and dismal to have played the part of this place where these poor unfortunates are taken. So we have a scene where these women are carried there in a cage, on the horse-drawn cage, full of unfortunate women.
I think, you know, shooting in Prague, you can definitely get more for your dollar, which is why most productions come here, but we didn't come for that reason. We originally came for the streets and the old style, you know, that they had to the streets, the cobblestones and everything like that. But in the end, we used it more for interior locations, which are the more lush and rich. And even in England, you can find those because they still exist, that old feel. But out here, there's so many great interiors you can use. And then you can create a set like this and shoot the exteriors and then combine them both and, you know, hopefully get that real feeling out of it.
I discovered from working on a previous film in which Queen Victoria was a major character that a good way of doing the richest woman in the world also happens to be very, very small, is to put her in a very, very big room. So there was that contrast going on, and you could put her in a very big room full of gold things, and the graphic quality of that was very, very clear. And as a counterpoint to that, what you have in this film is an awful lot of poor women living all together in a very small room. So there's the contrast between those two things, and I think that's what I wanted to get across. Prague has got a lot of very interesting interiors and big interiors. So all of those things, the Strahov Monastery has two large libraries, one of which we used as an interior of Buckingham Palace and one of which we used as a library that has no name. It could be the British Library, it could be anything, where Abeline goes to do some research.
I'm risking my job for you. The least you could do is stay awake.
Awake or asleep, dearest Sergeant Godley, I know that the luckiest day of my life was the day we became friends.
Okay. Wait. Oh. Oh, okay. Let's just roll again and now I'll talk to you.
Alan and Albert had encyclopedic knowledge of the Ripper murders. They knew a hell of a lot more than I did, and at the beginning of this film, 8 months ago, when I started working on it, they knew then a hell of a lot more than I know now. So they know a lot about the murders. But what I could bring to it was how things look in England and how the architecture works, and to sort of turn their vision of it into a real environment.
This is very accurate, particularly to 10 Bells right here, the way this looks, the way that this looks as in relation to the Christ Church. Christ Church is, I'd say, 95% accurate. We digitally put in another 2.5 lengths of this. What you see here, there's another 2.5 up. So that we do, but it's exactly the way it looked. Mitre Square is exactly the way it looked. Miller's Court is exactly the way it looked. The whole set, a lot of these shops are just from actual photos, you know. He got it right on. This guy, Martin Childs, is like really fun to work with too, but really detail oriented and very good. We basically took all the murder sites and tried to get them as accurate as possible, you know, 95% accuracy, along with the victims, like I said, and we tried to tie all these locations together into one central location where we can shoot the movie, shoot everywhere, and then not tie them in, you know, not have it so you can see that, hey, this set was connected to this set. You know, you can use the whole set for different purposes.
All of the murder sites are well documented, and we've reproduced those to the nth degree.
And action!
Having taken something called the Ripper Tour around the East End of London, I discovered that a number of the murder sites still exist, and if they don't exist, if the walls around them don't exist as Victorian walls around them, as places that you could shoot on location, then at least their sort of footprint does. So the cobblestones are still there, telling you what the blood-stained cobblestones would have looked like. So we reproduced that pretty faithfully.
As far as recreating the murder sites, I think they're as accurate as you can get, you know, or have been documented in a film, because usually in the films of the past, they have a girl getting like murdered outside of a train station, and it just never happened, you know. So as far as the environment around the murder sites, actually the way the body was laid and what was by her head and what the wall looked like, or the whole street or alleyway or courtyard, because they were murdered in different locations. It's as accurate as it's ever been, actually. And some of the murders, you can actually obtain photos and see a lot of what was around the bodies, you know, and how they were found. Some of them they have less material on, but we had to connect the dots or go find police records and read the descriptions, you know, and paint in everything there, and use these ripperologists actually also to help us, you know, piece it together. It's a mystery.
I mean, we spend so much time creating detail because to help the audience believe that this is where these things could have happened. It's a pretty extraordinary story that this man went around murdering these women. So let's create somewhere with a touch of reality where you believe it could have happened. What's going to be great about this movie is the way the Hughes brothers are going to tell the story, I think, or the way Rafe Iglesias has told the story, interpreted by them. All I've done is to kind of give it a little bit of world in which that could happen and which people are going to believe it happened.
Okay, here we are on the From Hell set, right outside the city of Prague. Set that was built by or designed by Martin Childs, our production designer, and we're going to take a tour of Whitechapel. Built in Prague. Yeah. All right, Martha Tambram, the real first victim in the movie, but not the actual Jack the Ripper victim. Was some people say, though. Some people say she may have been a Jack the Ripper victim. I don't buy it. Me neither. She was found right here in this George Yard, just inside here. As you can see, her dummies there. Okay, let's see what we got here, guys. Let's see what we got in our hands here. Let's see. I don't think you guys should watch this. She's not that real. You weren't supposed to show that. Okay. This is Bucks Row. This is where the first victim of Jack the Ripper was found, Polly Nichols, or what's her nickname? Does she even have a nickname? Polly Nichols. Yeah, Polly. She's called Polly. Yeah, Polly Nichols. Here she is right here in the green dress. She's found on an open street like this. And her cuts are pretty severe. Can I show you what happened here, even though you're going to probably cut it out of the EPK? If you get up really close to her face. That's what Johnny's character does. He smells the poison on her lips. Have been poisoned. I see. So she was found on a street similar to this, called Bucks Row. Jack murdered her here, and in our movie you see him walk up around the corner. And just like in reality, he murdered the victims and pretty much in plain sight, but nobody saw him do it. While we're here, let's go over here towards this pub here, which you guys have probably already gotten, but this is 10 Bells. This is the pub the girls actually hung out in. It's an exact replica of the real one also. And across the street over here is Christ Church, which was actually right across from 10 Bells like we have it here. And this is the church that stood right in the middle actually of Whitechapel. Right in the middle of Whitechapel. So the actual victims actually walked up and down this street, the real victims. And we created the church and the pub, and they still exist to this day in London. It's the only two pieces that really stayed intact. Yeah. And if you can go up to the top of the church there, this is my. Digitally, we put in the rest of the church, which goes another 2.5 of those up, or 2 of those up. Digital. Display. CGI. Well, you guys won't be using much of this. All right, we're about to take you in to see the second real Jack the Ripper murder site in From Hell, the movie. Who was the victim? The victim is Annie Chapman, and she was murdered in the backyard area of Richardson Packing Casemaker. And if we go right through this alleyway, we'll see her, I think. We'll see the dummy of the actress. And she came into this way, and we'll take it this way. You ready? The second victim, Annie Chapman, lay right here. Dark Annie, as they called her, and this is the exact position of the body. Although we dug the dirt out because we needed to use it for a pickup shot somewhere else. And there was a fence here. There's a fence here where the grass has grown considerably since she's been murdered. And this location, like a lot of the murder locations on the set, is an exact duplicate of the actual location If you look at the stones from the steps right there, and the stones right here, the window, and the wood over here, that actually was in the real location. Also, this outhouse back here looked pretty much exactly the same way.
Yeah, this is probably the first movie to actually get the murder locations right on. Okay, watch your step there. This is one of the alleys that the girls conducted their business in. The prostitutes, or whores as we like to call them. And this is like, you know, one of the alleys.
We use this alley in the movie for several different scenes. You may see the Ripper go through this alley. You may see some of the victims go through here. And around the corner was one of the murderers, Liz Stride, I think the 5th victim. She may have been the 4th. I still got to check my notes.
Posters on the wall are period posters from the time right here. These are actually would have been up. The Carnival at Venice. Don't mind that over there.
Right around the corner here was where Liz Stride was found murdered. There was a puddle here because it was raining that night. She dropped her grapes in the movie, and she was found right here. There is no dummy available for her because we actually used the real actress and
slit her throat.
Slit her throat, yeah. And
what was this location called though?
Burner Alley or Burner Street location.
And it was the 3rd victim.
What, the 3rd?
Yeah, because she was 3rd.
Oh, that's right, that's right. I said 5th. You gotta make sure you.
Yeah, so the third victim was found here, and it was Liz Stride, laid out here in Burner Street. Okay, right here we're walking into Mitre Square, what victim was this? The 4th
Kate
victim?
Eddowes, I believe.
Kate Eddowes, the 4th victim, was found in here.
And this location still exists in London, just a cobblestone section. The buildings have changed and they have restaurants there now, so we had to recreate this location. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it looks pretty accurate to it, the way it actually looks back here. And this is the body of Kate Eddowes was found.
Here she lied, Kate Eddowes. Kate Eddowes found in this position.
The 4th victim. I can't give you dates and times right now, but I know she was found right here at Mitre Square, or Mitre Square, whichever you want to call it. You say tomato, I say tomato. I say dead girl. Let's meet tomorrow.
Do you want to see her face?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's her.
Let's walk through the Ripper Alley here. This is where the last victim, Mary Kelly, was discovered. Her body was discovered right here, completely mutilated in Miller's Court.
And if you go right through here, you can see what Jack did in reality, in real life. The location is similar to the actual Miller's Ranch or Miller's Court. Right here would be a window. Right now it's been vandalized. And there would be a crack right here. And Jack Ripper, the real Jack Ripper, put his hand through here, opened the door, and went around, came through. And her bed, in reality, would have been right here, right beside the door. But in the movie, her bed is over there. And he murdered her while she slept, or while she awoke, and discovered her murdering her. And upstairs, the landlady heard screams, or murder screams, murder, murder, and did nothing about it.
Wow, look at like Alfred Hitchcock. This concludes our tour of the Whitechapel set in Praha. And as you can see, it's pretty big. And I think we've covered all the murder sites, but we didn't get to show you guys everything we want to show you because they won't show you all the gory details, but you'll see it in the movie. Yeah.
And just remember.
Yeah, no, it'll be scary.
Remember,
you can be killed at any time too.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys got nothing.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah, you keep it going. Now, what I was saying about this punky asshole, the other day ago, I was talking to him.